Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. And today we will be discussing my favorite movie of the Halloween season, Wendell and Wild. I watched this the other day and decided I needed to share with all of you. So Wendell and Wild starts off with Kat's father discussing how he is not selling the brewery that he owns in Rust Bank to nobody else. And he tells the Clarksons no deal. So, remember the Clarksons and remember Kat's parents, Leroy and Wilma, because they will be a very, 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 very important characters to this story. So, Wilma sees Leroy hang up the phone, and Wilma says, "Did you take care of that, Leroy?" And then he says, "I sure did. No one is buying my brewery, 'cause it means too much to me and to the people of Rust Bank." And then Wilma says, "I am taken care of too. I got lots of money for my library, so I will have lots of books for next year." And Leroy says, "Well, I'm happy to hear that." And then they tell their daughter, Kat, that it is time to go home. But she is with Mr. Foxworth, who sells the candy apples, and Kat is one of his favorite customers. So, as they are going home, Kat gets a candy apple and she says goodbye to Mr. Foxworth. And then, as her dad is buckling her in, he sees the candy apple and he says, "What's that, Kat?" And then Kat says, "Dessert." And then her mother says, "No, honey, go pop." And she tries to grab it, but Kat's too fast. And the mom just shakes her head while smiling. And while they are driving home, rain hits and a thunderstorm hits also. And Wilma says, "Leroy, slow down. I don't like this." And then Leroy says, "It's gonna be fine, Wilma. Look, almost home." And then Kat bites into her candy apple. She takes one big bite, and then she sees the worm, and then she screams. And then when she screams, her parents look over at her, and they say, "Honey, what is it?" And then Wilma says, "Look out!" And then it turns out that the bridge they are driving on is not complete. So they end up driving off of the bridge and into a lake. And Kat's parents tell her that, well, Kat's mother tells her that she needs to swim, just like they taught her. And then Kat says, "Mom, but I'm scared. Aren't you coming?" And then the mom says, "Right behind you, baby." And then when Kat swims up, she looks back at the car floating to the end of the river. And then it turned out that it is just a memory, and Kat is returning to Rough Bank after 13 years. And she is going to a private school called Girls United. And the person who is driving her, Mrs. Hunter, slows the car down, and she asks Kat, is she okay? Because they just crossed the bridge where her parents had the accident. And then Miss Hunter says, Kat, are you okay? Because we just crossed the bridge and you had a panic attack. And then Kat says that she is fine. And so they drive up to Girls United, and Miss Hunter tries to give her some advice to behave herself because she betted her great-great-grandmother's secret casserole recipe on her. So don't let me down, Kat, she says, 'cause I betted my grandmother's secret casserole recipe on you. So don't let me down. And so with that, Kat says, okay, Miss Hunter, I won't let you down. And then Miss Hunter gives Kat her dad's old Cyclops radio to take to school with her. And so Kat meets the principal, and the principal welcomes her. And then Kat says, the only reason you offered to take me in and to teach me, the only reason you offered to take me in and to teach me is so that you could get scholarship money for the school. And then the principal says, no, you are very welcome, Catherine. And then Kat says it's Kat, not Catherine. But Catherine is her real name. But she likes to be called Kat instead. So, after meeting the principal, she goes outside once again to get some air, where she meets these three girls, and one of the girls are called Bonnie. And Bonnie tries to welcome her to Girls United, but Kat doesn't want to be friends with them because Kat can see that they are just some mean rich girls. But it's not over yet, my friends, because it turns out that Kat can see the future. So a brick comes in between her and Bonnie, and she pushes Bonnie out of the way along with the other girls. And since they gave her the nickname KK, they say, KK, you just saved my life because you knew that brick was gonna fall, but you pushed me out of the way. Thank you. I owe you big time. And then Kat says, it's no big deal. I just didn't want to see anyone get hurt. And so, when the sisters, because she's going to a private school, so the sisters guide her to her new room, and before she can and before she can set her new room up, the sisters tell her not to dawdle. And then Kat closes the door, she gets dressed, and she puts on some of her dad's old tunes that he used to listen to. And then when she goes to class for the first time, she sees Bonnie and the girls once again. And then they see her new and then they see her outfit and they say KK. And then sitting in the back, even though he was inside the building, and he accidentally knocked off the brick. Raul accidentally knocked off the brick that almost hit Bianca. Because he was working on an art project. So he already saw Kat talking to Bianca and the rest of her friends. So she sees Raul sitting behind her, and Kat says, "You're the assassin." And Raul says, "It's not my fault. That brick was loose on the building." And then Kat asks, "What were you doing up there anyway?" And Raul says, "I was working on my art project." And then Raul tried to talk to her some more, tried to get to know her some more. And then Kat says, "I don't do friends, Raul, because bad things happen to people that I'm close to." And then Raul says, "Like what?" And then Kat says, "They die." And then Miss Helen walks in, the teacher, and she shows them the octopus, and what they will be learning about the octopus today is that the octopus can blend into all places if it just sits in one spot like a chameleon. So, Kat is called up to look at the octopus first, and then the octopus bites her. But it didn't bite her. Let me explain. It chose her to be a handmaiden. And Miss Helen knows this, but everybody else saw Kat get bit by the octopus. So Kat goes outside with Miss Helen, and Miss Helen asks Kat, "Are you okay?" And then Miss Helen looks at the mark, and then Miss Helen knows that she is now a handmaiden, but she needs to tell no one about that mark. No one. So, Kat goes back to her room that night, and she holds up the picture of her parents in her hand. And Kat says, "I really miss you guys. I really need to talk to you." And then she goes to sleep. And then she has her dream about her parents' accident. And then we meet Wendell and Wild, two demons who work in the underworld. And a happy bubble comes to them. And guys, I'm not kidding. The bubble looks like Mickey Mouse. So the happy Mickey Mouse bubbles. So the happy Mickey Mouse bubble comes to them. And it says, "Greetings, cousins. I have found you a handmaiden." And they were just working with some hair cream for their boss to make their boss's hair grow. So, since they're working with the hair cream, Wendell ate some of the hair cream, and his brother Wild said, "Wendell, what are you doing?" And then he says, "Oh, just eating some hair cream because it tickles my tummy." And then Wendell says, "Wild, stop doing that. You're the only reason we're down here in the first place. If you didn't make the boss angry, we wouldn't be down here. We would be working on our carnival. We would be working on our carnival up there and not down here." But Wendell asks Wild just to try it. So he tries it, and they see a girl with curly hair that matches Kat's description. Keep this in mind, because the bubble comes to them the next day. I forgot to tell you guys that this is the next day. The bubble comes, and the bubble says, "I have found you guys a handmaiden." So the bubble says, "I have marked." So the bubble says, "I have marked your hand, so you will know which one it is. Rejoice, brothers. You will come to the living once again." So when the bubble pops, Kat had the same dream that same night, but this time Wendell and Wild come in her dream. And they said, "You are now our handmaiden, and you will now obey us." But Kat says, "No way I am listening to you. No way I am doing anything." And then they make a deal to bring back her parents. Even though they don't know how, they lied and said that they did know how. They lied and said that they did know how to bring back your parents. So Kat says, "Fine, I will bring you back to Earth. But you have to bring my parents back." And before they go, they say, "Get the stuffed bear Balls of Bob, and then use him to cast a spell to bring us back." And they say, "You need one witness." And Kat does try to hide her mark at first, but Wendell and Wild already see the mark, and they already know that she's a handmaiden. So she is stuck in the deal, because she tried to hide the mark from them by saying, "What mark?" But they already seen it. So they make a deal with Kat. "We will bring your parents back to life if you can bring us back to life." And When you bring us back into life, we can build our fair, and you will have your parents back. So, when the dream is over, we cut to Mr. and Mrs. Clarkson, the council members that were talking to Leroy, Kat's dad, about selling his brewery so that they can build more prisons. But he already said no. So, even though this was way back when, so I'm just catching you guys up. So, the Clarksons are talking to the principal about build about building their prisons, and the Clarksons are not going to help them with the school because they need more land to build their prisons. And then the principal says, I'm not going to help you, and I'm not going to vouch for you anymore until you could give me money to save my school. So they get rid of him by pushing him off a bridge. They get rid of the principal. And so, at the funeral of the principal, everybody is sad that the principal is gone. So, when Kat throws down the rose, she tries to leave, so she can summon the spirits of Wendell and Wild. And so she takes Raoul into the woods so she can do the spell. She does the spell, but she doesn't But since Wendell and Wild are underground, because it's underground, it works underground, and they can be summoned, but when they are summoned to the wrong gravesite. So, Kat thinks that it didn't work, and Raoul is just in awe. He is just amazed and kinda scared. My poor Raoul. He is one of my favorite characters. Okay, so anyway. So, the spell actually did work, and it did wake them up, but it sent them to the wrong grave. So, instead of waking Kat's parents up, because Kat wasn't there to greet them as their new handmaiden, they wake up the principal that just got put in his grave today. And so, the principal makes a deal with them. If you can help me save my school, and if we can split that fair money when you make your fair, to save my school. And then Wendell and Wild also make a deal with the Clarksons to dig up the old garden club members to get enough votes to build a prison. And also, Raoul's mother is also on the council. So Raoul's mother is the head of the council, and she is in this. And she has been trying to solve the big mystery fire. But really, the Clarksons started it. And the principal vouched for them. So that's how they got the principal. Because the Clarksons say, if you tell anyone that we started the fire back then, we will stop paying for your school immediately. So, now that the Clarksons, the principal, and Wendell and Wild are all in the deal together to bring back the dead, council members, that means there is no one else to bring back Kat's parents, because they promised they would bring Kat's parents back, right? But when they first meet Kat, they just sent her to Mr. Falvey to go get them some food. And then when Kat is on her way back, she can see I'm sorry. She can see that a lot of people that were dead are now alive, and that Wendell and Wild have probably used the cream, and Raoul says, wait, what about Kat's parents? You promised you will wake them up for her. And then Wendell and Wild say, we're not doing anything. We are working with the Clarksons now, because the Clarksons say that they're going to give money to build our fair. So we're not doing anything for Kat anymore. So Raoul takes the cream and he wakes Kat's parents up. And he tells them that he is friends with Kat, and that they need to go into town and find Kat. So they go into their old house, and Kat is there waiting for them, and they hug, and Kat tells them about her new friend Raoul. So Raoul got caught by Wendell and Wild, and I should tell you this. Kat has swore to be their handmaiden, so there is no getting out of this. And so Miss Hunter tries to help Kat by telling Raoul to tell Kat's parents that Raoul brought back to life with the magic hair cream that they stole from their boss, that Wendell and Wild stole from their boss. And so Miss Helen tells Raoul to tell Kat's parents that she is going to be late. And so Miss Helen knows about her being a handmaiden, because a long time ago Miss Helen was one, and she asks Manberg, the master that I think was the master of Helen, because he said in the very beginning, I remember when you worked for me as a handmaiden. So I think she worked for him as a handmaiden, and then she wants to work together with Kat to destroy the army that is coming, because they are raising the dead to get more council members to build more prisons, and to get more land to build more prisons. So Manberg actually binds their powers together. And Miss Helen actually helps Kat faces her fear and fights her demons. And now Kat is a handmaiden and she can see the future. So, with all the board members going back to life, Raoul and the other council members are there and they are ready to start the meeting. But then the zombie council members come in, and then Raoul's mother read the rules, and then the zombie council members, since they are living, because it says anything that is living in the council members group shall vote, since they are living once again. And since all the council members know them, it turns out that the Clarksons can get their present after all. And the saddest part is that they will be destroying the private school that Kat and Raoul and Bonnie and even Bonnie's friends and her pet sheep goes to. So, since they are gonna bulldoze the school, Bonnie's parents, the Clarksons, say that they need Bonnie's support. So tomorrow they need her there to support them so they can build the prison and tear down the school. And Bonnie says that, yes, Mother, I will be there to support you. And that she needs to feed her pet sheep. So she goes out of the office, goes to feed her pet sheep, and then she finds Raoul and Kat in the cemetery. And then Bonnie tells Kat that her parents are going to destroy Girls United and that they need to work together to stop them. But meanwhile, Kat's parents get kidnapped by the principal and the Clarksons when Kat is out with Raoul. No. Kat is at the school and Raoul is with Kat's parents. And Kat's parents answered the door. I'm sorry, you guys, I got mixed up. Kat's parents answered the door by themselves, and they get actually kidnapped by the Clarksons and the principal. But when they get kidnapped, they show no fear. They just say Kat could make scarier faces when she was 3. And let me just tell you, I just love how her parents are just so funny. Kat could make scarier faces when she was 3. You don't scare us. And then they laughed at Wendell and Wild when Wendell and Wild try to torture them with a toy mallet. And then, when all this is going on, Kat, Miss Helen, Mr. Lamberg, and even Bonnie go to save Kat's parents. And then when they do, Kat tells everyone that she has mastered her abilities and that Miss Helen has helped her, but Miss Helen has stayed back because she needs some rest. So, they are all going to work together to stop the Clarksons from building the school. So, the next day, the Clarksons come in with the bulldozer. Oh, and I forgot to tell you. When Kat mastered her powers, it turned out that Wendell and Wild's boss came to visit him to get his hair cream back, and it turned out that the boss is actually their father, and Wendell and Wild said that they only came up top to build their fair. And then Wendell and Wild and their father have a very good heart-to-heart, and it turned out that Manberg has the rest of his kids. So he takes the rest of his kids back to the underworld with him, and they get permission from their dad to actually build the fair. And Wendell and Wild actually want to help Kat and her friends stop the Clarksons from building the extra prison and to keep Girls United, the private school, up forever. So they all work together. They get machines. They build machines to stop the Clarksons and the army of the walking council members from working together to build the prisons, and they win, but Wendell and Wild's father tell them that the shaving cream can only last for a little while. And Kat hears this and she tells her parents. And then her parents say, "That's okay, baby. We're just grateful that we got to just see you grow up into a wonderful young lady. And we will help you defeat the Clarksons." So they all work together, and it turns out that Raoul's mother even helps by getting some of the other council members. So they get some of the other council members to help, and she gets other witnesses to help with not destroying Girls United. They win, and the Clarksons and the principal get arrested. Well, the Clarksons do. I think the principal is forgiven after he learns that the Clarksons and Wendell and Wild weren't going to help them. So I think he apologizes and he still runs the school. But the Clarksons get arrested. And now the school can stay up. But it turns out that the shaving cream is wearing off. And Kat's mom and dad want Kat to tell them what she sees in her future. And she can see herself in Miss Hunter and Miss Helen helping her to become a wonderful handmaiden, and she can see that she is going to have a good life. And then, before her parents go, they say how much they love her and how proud they are of her. They are so, 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 so proud of her. And then, when their eyes close, Kat begins to cry. And then Wendell and Wild tell her that her parents will be the first customers, the VIPs, to enter Wendell and Wild's new fair that they will make up top and in the underground. And Bonnie and Raoul all say, wow. And then Kat looks at her parents and says, Mom, Dad, what do you think? And that is the end of the movie. And before the credits rolled, Kat says to us, everybody has their demons, as you see a little doll of her rise up. And she says, everybody has their demons. Mine are called Wendell and Wild. Wendell and Wild, thank you so much. And then that is the end of the movie. And there's also an end credit scene with the director who is in his house, and then Kat the doll knocks on his door, and then she just smiles at him. And that's the end of the movie. Bye, you guys. Oh, and from my family to yours, happy Halloween. Bye.